Welcome back to Honored Madman, and today I'm going to be talking about the World Serpent. So one of the first memories I have of playing God of War 2018 is when you're sailing through the Lake of Nine, and you stop to have Atreus read you a rune that tells you to throw your axe into the water. And when you do this, you're greeted by none other than the World Serpent himself, Jörmungandr, a colossal serpent with a beard of moss. And when he appears, he spits your axe right back at you, but with one thing different about it. It's now imbued with Aitr poison, or the venom of the World Serpent, known for its latent god-maiming abilities. It's seemingly all a part of Faye's plan that they encounter the World Serpent and have the axe imbued when they do this early on in the first game. I mean, surface level, they needed the serpent to move so they could access the Temple of Tyr. And little did Atreus and Kratos know at the time how badly they would end up needing that poison that the axe was now imbued with once they ran afoul of the Aesir gods. We see firsthand just how potent this venom can be when Kratos buries the head of the Leviathan axe deep into Magni's skull, much to the shock and surprise of his brother Modi, who flees in terror while screaming, "It's not possible." That's just the power of Aitr poison. Although I'm almost certain Modi had no idea that was why. The venom is also probably why the axe is able to give Thor a wound he's incapable of healing from. It seems that even after years in Fimbulwinter, the Aitr poison hasn't worn off completely. But before I get off topic and start rambling, today's video is going to cover the life and times of Jörmungandr, the World Serpent. I'm going to do my absolute best to keep things chronological, at least from Jörmungandr's perspective. So he presumably began his journey just as any other serpent would in Jotunheim, Ironwood to be specific. And he lived a fairly normal serpent's life, but everything changed when the batshit crazy lady attacked. Unfortunately for this young serpent, he had his soul stolen from him by Gryla, a powerful and insane grandma who unfortunately happens to be one of the last of the giants. She's clearly very old and possibly demented, claiming that she had forgotten many things in her time, but not her granddaughter Angrboda. We don't have to get into why Gryla is insane here, maybe that'll be done in a different video. But suffice it to say, the snake that would become Jörmungandr was attacked by an elderly giant with Alzheimer's who steals these souls so she can live moments of their life or their memories, which presumably has some sort of addictive effect on her because she seems to really enjoy it. I imagine that must be kinda cool, but wouldn't it be cooler to just turn into the animal and just live a life as an animal that way instead of, stealing the souls just so you can live moments of their life? Like some kind of twisted VR National Geographic game or something? Anyway, though, after this snake had his soul yoinked out, he was kind of just tossed aside in Gryla's kitchen. That is until one day, a young Atreus and Angrboda would come across what was left of the serpent. Atreus would make a baller move and feed this now soulless serpent the soul of a giant in an effort to save the snake's life. And to both Angrboda and Atreus' surprise, it seemingly worked, although the snake kind of just slithered off and wasn't really seen again. But think about it, you're a giant soul and you're just kind of chilling in some kind of, marble kind of thing. Presumably the inside of these marbles are set up like some kind of house or room where they have a library of their knowledge and memories they can kind of watch and view as entertainment, something to that effect. And when he was fed to the serpent and Angrboda and Atreus used their little bit of giant magic to make it work, it sort of forcefully evicted this soul from his little room into the body of a serpent. And that's got to be strange and unusual and hard to, accept, at least at first. I mean, after a while, I'd be kind of cool with it. I'd be like, all right, well, this is life now, I guess. But anyway, the serpent did not help Atreus and Angrboda fight Gryla. It just ran off into Jotunheim, and according to Angrboda, it grew at a pretty alarming rate. It just kept getting bigger, as she tells Loki, and she runs into him in Muspelheim. Presumably by this point, the serpent was now comfortable in his new body, and had at least somewhat adapted to the world around him. Now, Jörmungandr wouldn't resurface again until the Battle of Ragnarok. Now, he was either recruited by Angrboda to come help out, or he was just driven by his own intense hatred of Thor. And after doing a number on the forces of Asgard, Jörmungandr would finally get his wish and fight Thor. The two would battle it out for an extended period, with Jörmungandr trying to eat Thor and Thor zipping around with his hammer, avoiding all of the bites. Which I guess makes sense. There's no way that Jörmungandr would be fast enough to actually bite Thor while he's zipping around on Mjolnir. And whether Thor knows it or not, all it would take is one bite and no more alcoholic god of thunder due to the Aitr venom. Their fight would come to a world tree splintering conclusion when Thor strikes Jörmungandr so hard it sends him back in time. all the way back to when the enlarged serpent first appeared in the Lake of Nine, long before the events of the first game. This probably left the serpent quite confused. I mean, he just can't catch a break. He got knocked rather confusingly through time, and now he was in a place he had never been before. It was here that he would finally become the serpent of legend. As time went on, he saw the inevitable demise of his people, and this only further fueled his hatred of the Aesir. But it wasn't all bad times, though. He did befriend some familiar figures, one of those being Mimir, who he reportedly loved conversing with, since the old goat was one of the few who spoke Jörmungandr's ancient language. He also befriended Faye, the future wife of Kratos and mother of Atreus. Perhaps he felt a sense of familiarity with her due to being created in part by her son Atreus in the future. Or perhaps it was the fact that they were the only two that had ever fought Thor and survived. Either way, the two formed a strong friendship, and by the time Odin had completely genocided all the giants, Jörmungandr and Faye were the last two of their kind residing in Midgard, and perhaps all of the realms. Of course, we know by this point Angrboda and Growler are still around somewhere, but Ironwood's kind of a unique case. But it was a lonely life for Jörmungandr, especially after Faye died and Mimir was imprisoned on top of a mountaintop. With his two only friends seemingly long gone, the serpent went into a sort of hibernation. He was finally awoken when a familiar axe was thrown into the Lake of Nine where he was sleeping. Now, either Faye planned for this and told Jörmungandr that one day the axe would be thrown into the water and for him to imbue it, or he just did this out of habit or nature or perhaps instinct. Although any one of those things is possible, but Jörmungandr imbued the axe with his Aether poison and spit it back at Kratos. He then emerged to greet whoever it was that threw the axe, which lowered the water level in the Lake of Nine. He spoke to them briefly and presumably recognized Atreus from Ironwood, but departed after he realized they couldn't understand him. Some time would pass, but eventually Jörmungandr would hear the horn atop Tyr's temple be blown for the first time in presumably ages. While on his way to go investigate whoever blew the horn, Jörmungandr noticed a statue of Thor, which he hadn't seen previously due to the level of water being too high. He immediately devours half of the statue, while most of the rest crumbles around it. He then heads up to go greet Mimir, Kratos, and Atreus. He recognizes the severed head of Mimir, but becomes enraged when he hears Mimir say that people with him were friends of Odin. Luckily, the head quickly realizes his mistake and corrects himself, and then goes on to explain the situation that Kratos and Atreus are in to the big snake. Jörmungandr agrees and pushes the temple, rotating it towards Jotunheim to help the pair on their journey. After the two went on their way, some time would pass, and the horn would mysteriously blow again, although we don't have a definitive answer at who blew the horn this time because it happened while Kratos was on his Constantine-style mission to go save his son, who had been stricken with a mystery illness, in no small part due to being lied about exactly what he was. I mean, the kid was half giant, half god, but he thought he was just a regular kid. But after Atreus was better and had done a significant amount of adventuring with his father and Mimir, they realized that they needed Mimir's other eye, and that it might have been located in the very same statue of Thor that Jörmungandr had eaten earlier. So once again the three show up on old Jormi's doorstep. Mimir explains the situation as he usually does, and Jörmungandr tells him that he's pretty sure that some of the statue is still in his stomach, before offering to let the trio have a look if they want. Which honestly shows a pretty good deal of trust. I mean, he must really like Mimir and his creator Atreus to search around in his stomach for Mimir's lost eye. I mean, it's truly it shows us just how down Jörmungandr is to help his friends out. I mean, as I said earlier, it must have been a lonely life without Faye and Mimir to talk to. And also, they hate the Aesir, he hates the Aesir. There's also the fact that Atreus kind of helped create him, so I'm sure he has some love for Atreus there. But while the three are still searching around in there, the serpent comes under attack by none other than Dickie Bennett, or as this community knows him, Baldur. So while Jörmungandr has fought much harder targets like Thor, this is likely the only situation where his venom wouldn't help him out because, as we all know, Baldur is invulnerable to all threats, both physical and magical. Their fight causes Jörmungandr to spit Kratos, Mimir, and Atreus out before retreating off himself to go lick his wounds. This had all been part of Baldur's plan, of course. He figured that hurting the big snake would cause them to come up for air, and it did. Now Kratos would begin to finish what he started at the beginning of the game, but is attacked by Freya, Baldur's mother, who will stop at nothing to defend her deranged son. Even using her satyr magic to resurrect the corpse of Thamir, a giant, fucking giant, like a really fucking big one. and then using said reanimated giant corpse to attack Kratos. Now it's during this time that Atreus calls out for Jörmungandr's help, and sure enough, Jörmungandr shows up to take a bite out of Thamir, which gives Kratos the opening he needed. After Baldur's death, the serpent went back into another long hibernation, for seemingly the next few years. He was finally woken again in the bleak Fimbulwinter, where he was greeted by a slightly older and slightly more familiar Atreus and the dwarf Sindri. Atreus speaks to the serpent in his ancient tongue and asks for answers about Loki and his destiny. The serpent, likely remembering this name from giant legends as well as his own time in Ironwood, simply replies to Atreus with the words, Ironwood. After Atreus asked Sindri what that is, Sindri just said they were better off not coming at all, but eventually all would be clear for Atreus. Anyways, when Jörmungandr tells Atreus about Ironwood, he's effectively closing the loop on his existence. He's like responsible for his own creation in a way, since he was the one who pointed Atreus in the direction of Ironwood, which in turn leads to Atreus finding that soul-dead snake and feeding him the giant marble, thus leading to the creation of Jörmungandr as we know him. I know most people probably got that and maybe didn't need a video explaining it. I just thought it was something that was pretty cool. And to me, Jörmungandr is super iconic. I'd say he represents the Norse god of war games in a lot of ways. He's their sort of giant ally. And overall, I think he has just a really, really cool design, especially with the mossed beard. That would be a really cool tattoo. And before I close things out, I also wanted to say that I really like how they jumped away from the actual myths regarding Jörmungandr. We're told in the first game that him and Thor are destined to kill each other. Thor will kill him, but then he'll take 5 steps and die from the eye tier venom. And I'm glad that didn't happen. I mean, we had to sit through the first Fenrir's death, and that was like literally heart-wrenching for me. I know, Craig Mazin, they're just pixels on a screen. I can't be sad when pixels die. I'm just saying, those comments are going to get you extra scrutiny when you have stuff like a zombie makeout scene in your second episode of Last of Us, but we'll get to that in a separate video. Anyway, as always, I hope you guys found this video informative. If you liked it, please like it. If you disliked it, please dislike it. And if you want to be a baller, please consider subscribing to the channel. That really helps us out here. YouTube's turning into this dystopian, futuristic society where no one can swear and stuff like that. It's pretty ridiculous. If you want to follow me somewhere outside the channel, you could find me at Honored Madman on Instagram. That's really the only social media I use, and I honestly hate that Mark Zuckerberg gets some of my data. But yeah, Instagram is really the only semi-tolerable social media I have. So if you want to follow me on Honored Madman at Instagram. But enough with the self-promoting. It honestly feels gross. And let's get to our outro. So anyone think that Fallout series is going to be good? The one that's got the girl from Yellow Jackets, I think her name was Jackie. She was pretty annoying in Yellow Jackets, but good actor for sure. And of course, Walton Goggins, Boyd Crowder himself, is going to be in it as a ghoul. Man, I have to check that out for sure. But until then, there's only one live action Fallout, and that is Nuka Break. Shit was classic.